Alright, so this is going to be a little unofficial, but I wanted to go over some Guilty Gear 2 basics. Um, so this video is going to be all about um, basic game mechanical stuff. Now, I'm not going to talk about fighting mechanics. If you want to learn about fighting mechanics, please look at my Steam guide. Because that covers pretty much everything you need to know about fighting mechanics. I'm going to be using Kai for this video because Kai is my main right now, and I think I know the most with Kai. Although most of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is probably going to pertain to, well, pretty much all characters, but usually when I reference a lot of things, I'm usually referencing Soul, and Soul is usually used as the base point for most things. But just keep in mind that what I'm going to be trying to talk about everything in sort of a universal perspective. So the first thing I want to mention before I even get started with anything in this video, if you're new to Guilty Gear 2, is please, for the love of God, do the tutorials, okay? Play through campaign mode and do all of the tutorials, because if you're jumping into this game and you're asking me how to play, and I ask if you did the tutorials and you say no, the first thing I'm going to tell you, go do the tutorials, okay? This video assumes that you have, like, the most basic knowledge of the game's mechanics. In other words, you know what capture units are, you know what ghosts are, you know what quick commands are, you know what the organ is, and you know what the overall objective of the game is. This guide is supposed to teach you essentially a more descriptive explanation of those mechanics, in addition to stuff the guide doesn't really tell you, and some tips and tricks and hints to help you get started. The next thing I want to talk about, or the next thing I want to mention, is that this game takes practice. I would recommend highly playing against the AI, even though they cheat and don't do strategies you're going to see online. You need to practice. It takes a lot of just practicing and muscle memory, everything. It's not something you can just go online and expect to do decent in. It's going to take some time. There's a lot of different things you can focus on. If there's something in particular you have any questions about, please feel free to ask against the players you're playing against, especially me, because I love to talk about Guilty Gear 2 and I can answer most questions, and I will be glad to help you out with that. Anyways, with all the interlude out of the way, let's get started. So there's a few things that I want to bring up instantly as soon as we start out. Once I move my mouse out of the way. And that is, what the hell are you supposed to do when the match first starts? Well, I talked about this many times, and I also have a video on this for all starting strategies, or the most common starting strategies for every map. Now, your starting strategy is entirely going to be dependent on your playstyle, your matchup, and the master you're playing as. But if you want the most common / most safe starting strategy, use that video that I have. I'll link it in the description, but I'm going to go over that right now in terms of what you're supposed to be doing. So, as soon as the round begins, you want to go into the organ right away. Like, right away. And the reason is because you want to get your first servant unit out as soon as possible. Okay. This will make them summon. This will ensure that they will summon as fast as possible. So as soon as the match starts, you'll already be summoning servants. This is a real-time strategy game, so your microwing and your management has to be on point very fast. Now your second and third unit can be delayed because the first unit takes a little bit of while to spawn. But you want to make sure that they're going to be queued up instantly as soon as they're available. Now, with Kai and Sin, obviously because their swordsmen cost more than normal, your third unit is going to be delayed. And again, I've mentioned this before in other videos. So just keep that in mind. But you're going to be able to always summon 2 melee servants at the start. Now, why do you start with melee servants? Why don't you summon 2 melee servants why don't you start with melee servants and then armors? Or why don't you start with melee servants and a skill? Why do you always start with 3 melee servants? Okay. Well, the reason for that, and again, I've mentioned this in other videos, is for map control, early map control. You have access to melee units early in the game. They're relatively cheap. They can withstand their own in most situations, and you need to get early map control as soon as possible. In that overview video, I referenced this game very similarly to Warhammer 40k, because your first objective as soon as the match begins is to rush out to what are called the important ghosts. The important ghosts are ghosts that are either connected directly to the Master Ghost, in this case is 6, 1, and 7, or the ghosts that are specified as sort of branching points or important positions. In this case, it's ghost number 9, because it connects to both the middle lane and the bottom lane. So, generally speaking, when you start out on most maps, you're going to be doing the following. And once again, this is all stuff I've mentioned before in previous videos, but just going over it in more detail. So let's start out by going over the starting strategies for Ganymede. Let's say the match just started. We're going to have a swordsman go to 7. Now notice how I instantly have them go to 7 instead of going to 8, 9, 7. The reason for this is because this will ensure they take the fastest route possible, and they will, while they will still attack these ghosts because they're neutral, if you have them stop at a particular ghost, that means they're going to go to that ghost and stop there and confirm that the ghost is taken over before they go to the next spot. This confirms that they go to the fastest position. Not only that, but it's a quicker way to get them summoned out immediately. And then we're going to send the second unit to top lane, because that's probably the more important path here, because there's only one path leading to top lane. Now you're going to pick up 2 servants, and you're going to wait for them to get their ghost buff applied to them. This takes about half a second once they spawn, and you'll see that buff, that little shield icon next to them. This also applies to you as well. So this ghost buff, as it's called, is a small defense buff that you and your servants gain when you're near your Master Ghost or when you're near a currently claimed ghost. I think it's around a 30% defense increase, although I'm not entirely sure. It is huge in this game, okay? It is a huge game changer for both servants being able to be killed slower and for you in fighting. So you always want to try to refresh this thing as much as possible by running into your ghost or running through them to ensure it's refreshed. Now, the reason why you wait for your swordsman to get them applied is so when you summon them, they still have the buff applied. If they're while they're in your inventory, the buff will still be there until they're summoned again. So the buff is like frozen in time. So now we're going to rush over to those important ghosts I mentioned before. In this case, we're just going to rush over to this one here. Now he's already ordered to go there, so we're not going to do anything. And we're going to send one of them up here. We're going to have him wait here by using right on the D-pad to ensure he's not going to go anywhere. Now the thing about quick commands is quick commands only apply for the current round. And if that unit, as you can see, he's still grouped, if he's given any other order, his quick command will be overridden. So generally what you also want to make sure is to disband this particular unit and have him ensure that the only order the absolute order he receives is to stay here. Okay? Now let's summon the third guy down here for the same reason. Now, we place them at the 3 important ghosts. Now this isn't usually the starting strategy for Ganymede, but we have them all stationed here. What this does is it does 2 things. The first thing is that it generates mana for you on the opponent's backside. It blocks enemy servants movement, except for Ghost 6, because they can just go to 11 and just ignore it entirely. And it also blocks their capture unit chain. So capture units coming from the Master Ghost going this way will be blocked by your servant. Okay? That's why you want to rush these positions as soon as possible. Another reason is because when your servants are ordered to go to a friendly ghost, you'll notice that it's this boot icon instead. This is the retreat command. When they do this, they will ignore all enemies when going to that position. This includes if they're going to enemy lines. So let's say I have a new unit summoned and I want them, and there's enemies here. I can have them go right to 7 and they will ignore all units going that are at 8 and 9. This is both a good and a bad thing, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, retreating is actually a very important part of this game. If your servants are at a huge disadvantage or the enemy's masters is there and you feel like you're going to lose the fight, try to have your servants retreat. Keeping your servants alive is so important in this game because of the bar underneath their health, which is their experience bar. Level 3 servants have a lot of extra HP and can be a lot tougher to kill, especially when you're playing as Sin and Kai, because they already have the highest amount of HP out of all the servants in the game. Kai actually has an ability called Divine Gaze, which is very expensive and is pretty much only used when you have the advantage, but it increases the experience of an ally. So if you summon an elite and use Divine Gaze on him, it gets them to like level 1 and like halfway to level 2 like instant, which is very, very good to use. Anyway, so that's basically, that's like the basics of that. So as you can see, as I leave my MG here, let's say I actually own this ghost here. I'm actually going to be, when I use my blast driving, I'm going to try to run past it like this, and this one kind of like this, like drift into it, and this one also kind of, you see how I'm like trying to get in their vicinity so that I refresh the ghost buff. Again, this is very important to try to keep in mind as you're running around the map. Of course, also running into capture units as well. Friendly capture units to heal, enemy capture units to restore your tension. So now, blast driving and getting used to the maps and stuff, that just takes practice. You know, you just got to practice it a lot. A couple of tips I can give for blast driving is you can control how much you drift using the analog stick. So if you just drift normally, you'll notice how I'll drift a lot. But you can actually control how much you drift. So if I hold left while drifting, I'll drift more. Or if I hold, you know, right while drifting left, I'll drift less. You can also jump out of your drift to gain some momentum and to stop here. This is also a very good thing to do. Another common mistake people make with blast driving is blast driving too often. Blast driving takes 10% tension, so spamming blast drive like this, you know, like to very small distances, is a bad idea, especially if you're playing against a tension-heavy character like Sin or Valentine. To avoid that, you want to try to do short dashes across small distances, which is used by using the free locking, which is left trigger, and pressing the dash button. This does these tiny short dashes. This is also good for trying to get out of situations as well. So if you want to dash short distances, use short dashes instead of blast drives, because blast drives also take a little bit of time to start up, and they also take tension. So yeah. Alright, so I guess the next thing we should talk about is servant killing, because that seems to be the next very important thing. Now, usually after you make your placements, you have a couple of choices. You can either stay where you are and attack the enemy servants, hunt down the enemy master, or go back and counter their placements. So to do that, you're going to need to know how to kill servants efficiently. Now, we're going to do this with Kai. We'll have one of them go this way. And I'll kind of show you how to do that with Kai. Every single master has their own servant killing loop. But generally, it's a short combo that can deal a lot of damage to servants very quickly. And since servants can't block, you can just repeat the combo forever. So for Kai, it's going to be 4-8x, 4x, sidestep 4-8x. I'll show you. So like 4x, 8x, 4x, 8x, 4x, 8x, and then you're going to dash forward and do like an 8x. Do an OTG with the 5x to reset it, and then just kill them off. Now you can usually end that if they don't have a ghost buff with charge stun edge to kill them quicker. So let's look at that again. So I'll draw one of them out here, or both of them out. I'll show it again. Now I'm sure you know about OTGs and force get-ups and stuff. That's, again, covered in my mechanics guide. But remember that force get-ups reset combos, and you're going to be doing that a lot on servants to kill them more efficiently. Another thing you'll notice is how the servant's experience is going up over time as they're defending these positions. That's another very important thing. You always want to have servants defending ghosts for two reasons. Number one, it's used as scouting, and it also prevents capture units, a rogue capture unit, from taking over that ghost. But the second thing it also does is it gradually builds up their experience. So usually when you're attacking, it's kind of like Risk. You ever played Risk before? You always want to try to have one unit defending at least one backline behind, or important positions like 9 over here. So even though I have 3 units up at 6 here, I want to always have at least 1 defending 11 or maybe even 10, just in case the enemy tries to do a back line or, you know, whatever. Scouting and having knowledge of where the enemy is very important in this game, and not having correct scouts or defenses going on and not knowing what's going on could be very detrimental. You always have to keep an eye on the map and seeing what's going on. So maybe the enemy is taking over Ghost 2 all of a sudden, you see it goes neutral, and then they take it over, and then all of a sudden they have this whole back line and they're attacking your master base. You have to always be aware of that. Now, another thing to make note is when the round ends. So, when the round ends, usually in like the 30 seconds or so that come up, or in like the last 10 seconds, there's a couple of things you want to try to scramble to do when the round ends. The first thing is you want to buy a Dispel. A Dispel or an Anti-Rod. So, Dispel and Anti-Rods take a little bit of time to use once you buy them, as you can see. But if you buy them before the round ends, when the next round starts, you'll be able to use them instantly. So it automatically refreshes that cooldown. The next thing you want to do is try to neutralize enemy ghosts. What this will do is this will cause enemy units to retreat back to their most friendly ghost. So if the round was to end right here, these 3 guys would retreat back to Ghost 11. Now, yes, they might take over Ghost 6 as soon as the next round starts again, but the servants won't be there, allowing you to try to rush it down and take it over again. Very important thing to know when the round ends. When the round ends, you'll get a certain amount of income, depending on how well you did, how many ghosts you control, your servant income, all that kind of stuff. Yes, by the way, your servants actually have an upkeep cost. So every servant type in the game has a certain amount of upkeep costs. All normal servants, with the exception of Gauntlet Bodies and Springboks, have 10 mana cost at the end of a round. And elites have varying costs depending on the elite type. So for Sin and Kai, I think Convict Hammer costs the most, and the other 2 are less so. So that's just something to keep in mind. Although it does contribute to your score, it leads to a less income. In addition to that, also having more servants out at a time also decreases the amount of mana income you get. I forget what the exact numbers are off the top of my head, but if you have a lot of servants out, you're actually going to be making less income, so that's also something to keep in mind. You generally don't want to keep spamming tons and tons and tons of melee units unless you're really behind or if they're really trying to kill them, because that would just be detrimental to your mana. You always want to try to, especially when you're playing a Sin and Kai, you want to be a little bit more conservative with your mana in order to save up for items, skills, and elite units, of course. Oops. Alright, so I know I'm just running around talking about different things because it's kind of hard to like explain what's going on. Because there's just so much going on in this game and it happens so quickly, it's really hard for me to explain. And a lot of it, like I said, just comes down to practice. Muscle memory, practice, all that kind of stuff. So now I'm going to show you a quick little CPU match, and I'll kind of try to explain what's going on as I'm playing it. So again, we're going to do Sin, Kai versus Sin, and we're going to go on a different map. We'll do Illyria 1, because that's also one of the most popular maps in the game, and generally one of the easiest ones. Now, Illyria 1 has a 3 pickup servant start, is generally what I like to do. And I'm going to try to explain it as I do it. But yeah.
There's a battle to be won, round 1. Let's rock.
Top, bottom. Both sides are going to be exactly the same. Wait for Ghost Buff, pick them up. Take these 2 here, have them go to 1, split them up. Pick up the second one. Third one's going to go down to 5. Get the third one out. March up top. Now, if you spawn on the left side of Sin and Kai, you can actually start with 3 units, but that's a little more advanced step. Run into the capture units, we can now summon servants as we're running by pressing B. They're going to stay there because I ordered them to go there. Next one here. Down over here. Next one here. Oops. Next unit's going to go to 1, but that's another important position. I haven't go there yet. Now I'm going to deal with these servants here to try to help my servant out. And I'm here. And I'm Kai, and I got max tension. Ride the lightning. I'm going to go to top. I'll go to the catwalk, sorry. Now I'm going to kill this rogue little servant over here because he's kind of retreated. He doesn't have ghost buff, so he can use a kill. If I charge stun edge, it's rather important. Neutralize this ghost so that those ghosts, the capture units from the other two ghosts will take it over. I know he's doing with stuff down there, but I don't really care. I'm going to pick these guys up. This third guy has a ghost buff, so I'm going to put him in a little bit more detrimental position here. A more risky position, rather. I'll put him down here to help with these guys. Hit this ghost to neutralize it, so we don't get ghost buff again. Just charge stun it, knock this guy. Oh, I don't have mana. Okay. Whatever. Okay, so I bought Gauntlet Bodies there, which is a little bit of a late buy, that's fine. I'm going to send another unit to top. They're going to just retreat there and just going to take it over. Okay, just goes down here. I'll try to have them stay, but I don't think that works. Remember, you have to use quick commands to ensure that they're going to stay there. By heavy feet, this is usually used against Sin when you're playing as Kai, because Kai is a more versus master. Okay, so this is a good example. If you look at the map here, of the CPU actually making a right play. I know, right? That's crazy. So I'm down here dealing with the servants down here. Look where Sin is. He's up here killing these servants. So my immediate plan would be to, alright, those servants going to there are probably going to get hit, and that's going to be bad. So I need to go back and attack Sin here. But now I have this bottom lane under control, so I'm pretty good. So I'm actually going to have one of them defend here. Have this guy move over to 9. Make sure he's staying here. Make sure he's staying here. Have those guys come here and come down to here because there's no one defending that position. Now we got armors up. Have one of them go here. Split one of them go bottom. Split one of them go here. And we're going to buy Springbox, which is our next buy against the Sin Kai matchup. Now we really got to go fight Sin here because he's pushing hard. Oh, look, check this out. Quadra Bela. Because we have the mana for it, so why not? Alright, now we're going to fight Sin. Oh, that was interesting. Heavy feet, so now he can't get away. We got a combo. Hit confirm. Serving got in the way, that's fine. Yeah, the CPU, like... Oh, that was a guard break because of the... Alright, yeah, the servants are a little bit troublesome there, but that's fine. Do the same thing with the Springbox, have them like kind of split up a little bit. Pick this guy up. Now notice how the other Gauntlet Body is just kind of doing whatever, but I don't really care. Now I just noticed that swordsman is now rogue, so I'm gonna try to take him out. Okay, he died. Doesn't matter. Atomic Hammer. I don't have a guy defending 3, which is bad. So I'm gonna have one of them go to 3. Have that guy go down there. Sin is attacking 3, so I'm gonna go deal with him. Okay, he ran back. So now we pretty much have the whole map under our control right now. Pretty good. I don't know if this guy's grouped up. I don't know what the hell Sin's doing right now. Now we're about to get... Yep, there he is. One of them go here, make sure they're all evenly distributed. So with Sin and Kai, you want to try to really distribute your servants because they're really powerful. Got the heavy feet against Sin here. He's gonna get knocked out of this because it's a... Yeah, see how the heavy feet, he can't get away from that. Now, if he was a competent player, he'd actually be bursting right now. Alright, so he's at 0% barrier, so we're going to try to deal some damage to put around him.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I dispel.
End of round.
Anti-melee rod because whatever. Alright, so that was round 1. So now you can see how at the end here, I got 970 income because I own the entire map. So,
There's a battle to be won. Round 2. Keep on rocking.
Alright, so we got Combat Hammer coming up. We're going to buy Heavy Super now. Have all these guys go up. He's actually going to immediately go for there. We actually might have one of these guys. We'll go 5. Stay here and defend. Actually, no. We'll have him stay for a little bit longer. We can buy a bomb, and we can buy next guy to the walls. So when you're far ahead, buying items is a really smart idea. Alright, we're gonna have this guy just go straight to the fucking master goes. Because he's gonna take a while to get there anyway. Alright, we're gonna go fight Sin.
敵はまるで神聖です。
That's like his B&B. And that's GG. So yeah, we again rushed Sin down. He killed that servant there, but that's really no big deal. And now he's killed MD, and that's it. GG. So I know it's a lot to like explain at once, but like that's literally why I struggle with why there's so much. Like, I struggle with, like, how to explain what's going on in this game, because there's just so much happening at once. Like, that's sort of me trying to do, like, a live commentary of, like, what's going on in the match and everything like that. But, yeah, so, like, I hope this was at least a little helpful. If anyone has, like, any ideas of, like, hey, I want you to talk about this specific thing, then let me know, because otherwise, like, I don't know what you want. Like, if you want, like, fundamentals, how do I play Guilty Gear 2? It's like, I mean, I don't know. I can't, it's hard for me to do that. Like, it's a lot of just practice and kind of just looking at it and kind of figuring it out as you go along. But yeah, so hopefully that was a little helpful, but I gotta go, so I guess. Whatever.